Hi, I'm Quan. I'm a millennial mom of 4 children, 4 boys, 9, about to be 7, 4, and about to be 2.
Hi, I'm Amy. I am a Gen X mom, and I have 2 Gen Z kids.
Hey, I'm Shana Swain. I am a Gen X mom, and I just recently found out, I think from Ryan, that my children, ages 8 and 5, named Zuri and Amara, are actually Generation Z and Generation Alpha.
My name is Monet Payne. I'm a millennial mom. I have 3.5-year-old, almost 4-year-old triplets. So they wonder.
They're Generation Alpha.
Alpha. Wow, it definitely fits their personalities.
Hi everyone, my name is Dasia. I am a millennial mom of 3. I have a soon to be 13-year-old, soon to be 8-year-old, and a soon to be a 3-year-old. I don't know their thing.
And my name is Sherry. I am a Gen X mom of 3. I have 2 in high school and 1 in grade school. Similarly, I don't know where to qualify them. I know what they don't want to be called, but I don't know, at this point what we're identifying.
And what don't they want to be called, Sherry?
Speaking of my high schoolers, they're the ones who would, have the most opinions. They don't want to be called Millies because they don't believe they are, but they don't want to be called Homelanders. They don't want to be called Zoomers. Those are the 2 that stick out, but they haven't really found anything that really resonates with them. How about you, Amy? Because your younger son's about the same age as my boys. Does he have an opinion?
I have 1 in college. He's going into his senior year of college, and then I have 1 who's 16, and they both just are like, okay, Gen Z, whatever, we don't care. They're they do not think that they're millennials.
Right. I think that's the key, is they know that they are not part of that. That I think is the key.
What makes them think that they're not millennials?
Oh, my oldest son is 21. He'll be 22 in October. So, he said that he just doesn't feel like he's a millennial because one of the things is that he does not remember 9/11.
Okay.
He was 2 or 3 when that happened, and just some of the things that a lot of the shows and music and stuff that they associate with millennials, like Harry Potter, that was just, that was kind of before him.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels like the music that he listens to are, because he's really into music, it's just a different generation that is interested in, the stuff that he is. So I guess that's why. I don't know. I'm speaking.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Who all here is still technically in lockdown? Because I know some states are open and some aren't. So
we're definitely. I'm in Illinois, so yeah, we're definitely on lockdown in suburban Chicago. So we're probably in the last region of Illinois to open up. So here we are.
So what does that mean exactly for your kids? Do they go anywhere, Sherry, or do they just stay at home, or what are they doing?
My heart hurts to answer that. It's been difficult, especially with the 2 high schoolers. I think at first, my husband put it this way. He said he feels like at first, and you tell me if you agree with this, back in March when this was all happening so quickly over the course of just a handful of days, he felt like it was sort of a national timeout. Like the people in charge were just like, hey, everybody stop moving so we can figure this out. Right. And so at that time, I think it was kind of easy to to jump into that. And for the kids too, they were like, okay, we've got to hold still so that the people who would make the decisions know what to do going forward. As time passed, it became increasingly difficult for the kids to be so isolated, to be so removed from their peer group. Yes, they engaged virtually, and this is one of the few times when I've been grateful for technology with my kids, because it's how they stayed connected. But it wore them down a little bit. And I think right now everybody is more than itching to get out. They're climbing, just wanting to get out, wanting to do anything. Probably internally, if I had to guess with my boys, they probably don't even care anymore about what the rules are. They just want to get out. So we feel like we're trying to find the middle ground between respecting the environment and also trying to give them a little bit of room. And we haven't found it yet. We haven't found the middle ground.
In the state of Florida, they started to open in phases, and same thing. As soon as they opened up the beaches, everyone was at the beaches. As soon as they opened up, the stores or whatever, everyone was out in numbers. No masks when you go out to the store. Maybe just a small percentage, like myself and my husband. The kids are not returning to school. They're not going to summer camp. We're gonna just keep them home. Just playing it safe for a little bit longer until we know that until we're comfortable going out more.
What about you, Quan? What are you doing with your kids?
Yeah, same here. Just they haven't been anywhere. Only Ryan and I will go out, of course, go grocery shopping and stuff like that. But just staying at home. Our neighborhood, the pool is open, and my oldest, he understands. He's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to get corona. My younger ones, they're kind of heartbroken, but we explain to them the situation. We're not living in fear, but we just, being careful. And I've always been like that. I've always been, before this virus, kind of a germaphobe. And they're kind of heartbroken about school because this is actually their first year going to school. I homeschool them the early part of their years. And, my oldest second grade, my second one is third, and then my second one is in first grade. And they really enjoyed school. They were so excited, they love it, and they were really heartbroken to have to leave so soon. And so that's the only thing. But their teachers, they do Zoom calls, so all of the children, the classmates can meet up and say hi, and that has helped a little.
Is everybody still in school at this point? I know our school.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was.
Well, they finished their last
day was Thursday.
Last day was Friday for my children.
I was happier than they were.
Yeah. I'm homeschooled, but this year really spoiled me.
I give kudos to anybody who's homeschooled. It's not for me.
Yeah. I really got spoiled, but I was happy that at least my oldest son's teacher Zoomed with them every day and went over their schoolwork, so that helped.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So
where you live, that school will resume in September, or do you think it's going to be e-learning again or remote learning again?
As far as South Carolina is concerned, they may open it. They're opening everything else up so soon. So I don't know if it's true or not, but there was a rumor going around or some post from the CDC recommending all of these rules if they do open back up. As far as the children over the age of 2 have to wear masks. They will have to eat in their classroom, pre-bag lunches, no recess, no field trips. Walking down the halls would be very strict. Just a whole bunch of rules that children, especially elementary age students, will not would not be able to understand.
That I know what post you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but
it's not.
Oh, okay.
So because I saw that post too. Several people were sharing it, and I don't know where the original source was, but it was taken down. It was blocked.
Oh, okay.
because it was misinformation.
Yeah.
But it was, they were suggestions by the CDC if the school was able to do it. It wasn't like across the board, this is what you have to do. It was merely suggestions.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I think that, you know, who knows? But I think that schools will do what they can in their ability to do it. So
Right.
if, you know, it may be that they do make older kids wear masks. It may be that, you know, they have certain guidelines, but I'm just kind of waiting to see what our school does. And then whatever they do, okay, we'll live with it.
I work in education. I work at an elementary school. I'm a speech pathologist. So when those guidelines came out before it was determined that they weren't inaccurate, I had actually talked to my principal about it. And of course, our district is following the lead of the governor. I think right now what will happen is the state of Florida, at least, has opened up pretty much everything except the schools. Well, the schools end next week, at least for my district. And so I think they're really going to kind of take a cue from what happens this summer, because they've allowed sports, they've allowed professional sports, they've opened up things for camps, although all the summer camps have pretty much canceled except for a few. The daycares are back open. So I think they're going to kind of take the lead of whatever's happening in the daycares and the camps. And if it looks like things are going okay, then I think that's going to kind of set the tone for, usually we start early August in my district. We usually go back like August 1st or August 2nd for teachers, and then the kids come about a week later. So I think that's going to really kind of lend itself. But I knew that those CDC guidelines that were out couldn't be true, because one of the restrictions was students would remain with their teachers all day. Well, being in exceptional education as a speech pathologist, well, I already know that wasn't going to work, because you have children with special needs that have this IEP that's a legal document that's supported by, you know, IDEA and all these other laws that are in place. There's no way that the child can just stay with their regular teacher all day and not receive their services. So we already knew that right there. Whether it was either going to be in-house or virtual, those children need those services. So I was kind of talking to my boss. I'm like, okay, I'm used to a table of kids. Kids are coughing and sneezing on you all the time. What are we going to do therapy with a mask on? Well, you can't do that because they can't see your mouth. Okay, are you going to have plexiglass on the table between us? Okay, that's a possibility. Are we going to have the children in their classroom and meet with us virtually, but I be in my classroom on the other side of the school campus and work with the kids in-house, because we know physically having the children in school is much different than when they're at home.
What do you think about continuing virtual schooling? Is that possible? Or
I mean, you know, of course, being safe. Don't mind me. You know, I want them to be safe, but who asked how I was teaching? Not for me. No. It's definitely been a challenge, especially with me working full time, and I work home on the computer all day, and trying to work from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. on my job. And then I've also picked up making masks and then trying to teach them, and it was just a lot.
I was talking to my son's algebra teacher a few weeks ago, and she wanted to know how he was doing, and I said fine, and I said so how are you doing, and how's it going from the teacher's perspective of, you know, teaching online? And she said, well, you know, it's difficult because there are kids that do not have access to a computer, although most do. However, a lot of kids may only have one computer in their house. So if you have a family that has 2 or 3 kids, we can't have deadlines for when assignments are due because they have to share. So what the principal told us to do was just give the coursework and say it's all due in a month. And that's what they did at the high school level. I don't know what they did at the middle school or grade school level. but she said that, you know, it's really tough doing it that way because they can't get through all of the stuff that they need to get through.
Well, they actually sent Chromebooks home with our kids. So each child had their own Chromebook and their own login that they can do. Of course, it was being monitored 24/7, and they'll have their assignments. So they were able to do their work at the same time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That might be district specific too. We had the same thing.
Yeah, they
All
have
three of
Chromebooks.
mine came home with Chromebook. Yeah. I think, at least where we live, I think it's a very real possibility that we're going to continue with remote learning in September. I don't want to say that too loud because all three of my kids would be really devastated.
Mine too.
If
Because
that
I
was the
even,
case, they miss it so badly for so many reasons. And but because of the way that it was laid out for Illinois, what the requirements are to move up the ladder of how to open up, it doesn't seem logical. Phase 5 is what they're calling it. Phase 5 is when everything is open, as it always has been, and we have to have either a vaccine or almost very, very low numbers of cases or an effective treatment before we go to that. Otherwise, we stay in phase 4, which is groups up to 50 with masks and social.
My kids are young, so my kids aren't school age. And right now, my kids, are in a pre-K3 class. So a lot of what they had wasn't required. But I know from my perspective, and it's like, Dasia, working full time, being told, you need to put in 8 hours a day, no matter what time of the day that is, you need to put in 8 hours. Trying to work with my parents and doing, therapy sessions with students, and then getting my own children in line. They're running around, they're screaming. My husband is in meetings all day long, on the phone all day long. That created an anxiety for me that I had never experienced before. To the point where it was like, okay, if there's another couple of weeks of this, I might have to take something. Like I may have to go call my doctor and say, I'm having heart palpitations. I'm having difficulty, like legitimately, I was struggling, and that's something I never experienced before. And getting to the end of the year was like, oh, thank God. But then I think of so many of my parents with very special needs kids, because we have a very special unit for highly autistic children and children with Down syndrome and other very, severe disabilities. And I tried to put myself in their shoes. Both of them are working, both parents are working. I have this very disabled child who could be violent, who could be, nonverbal. And then I don't know if you all have heard of the story of the mother down in Miami who had reported that her child was kidnapped by a black man. And it turns out that she had actually, killed her child.
Oh my goodness.
She was charged with murder of her child. Her child was nonverbal. I believe it was aggressive or violent. And I just think of those parents that I work with right now with children like that. And I can't imagine the anxiety, the pressure, the depression that she may have been feeling, not to justify what she possibly did, because I don't know if, I think she confessed. I think she did confess to it, but just not justifying it, but just considering what I was feeling with my 3 people sometimes running around screaming. I just wanted to go in the bathroom, shut the door, and just cry. I did cry a few times, but just thinking of those parents, I just don't know what will happen if it continues, if they get to the end of the summer and it's like, oh no, we're going to continue this for a little bit longer.
Right.
I don't know. I just, it's just reading that story just breaks my heart.
How are you all doing? How is this as moms, as, either fully leading a family or being one half of a partnership that's leading a family?
We went from one dynamic where my children were involved from sunup until sundown and everything, into another dynamic where everything effectively had been cut off. So it was an adjustment. The first 3 weeks or so, ups and downs, lots of emotions. I'd say some depression, some anxiety. And then we got to the point where we kind of got used to it. The Zoom classes with their dance teachers, the violin classes came back on Zoom. Their class, like from their school, they got back on Zoom. So they had a little bit of interaction with their peers at that point. But it's still very emotionally taxing, I think, to be stuck within four walls. My children are young, so they're very dependent on me. And try being stuck in four walls within four walls, because they're always around me, you know. So I love them, but it's a lot. Yeah.
When they first started shutting colleges down, my oldest was home for spring break. He had just been, you know, just planning on coming home for the week, and then he was going back. And I started hearing about Harvard shutting down and the Bay Area schools in California shutting down. And then it was like a steamroller effect. And I said to my son, you know, they could, there's a 50-50 chance they could shut your school down. And at that point, it wasn't a reality. It was just, well, that might happen. And he got so mad, and he was, you know, saying, oh, they better not do that. I can't stand being stuck in the house with you guys for months and months and months, and just throwing this fit. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Calm down. First of all, that's not nice. You hurt my feelings. And secondly, if this happens, well, everybody is going to have to make sacrifices. It's not just you, bud. So, you know, that's the way it is.
That is the big one for me too, for my children, because, you know, this is their first year in school around a lot of children, and they made a lot of friends, and that part of, you know, especially for my 6-year-old, he's very social, made friends with everyone, and he just started soccer, and all of a sudden that ended, and kind of broke his heart. And so as far as that is concerned, that has been tough. You know, they've been homeschooled, and you would think that, oh, this is nothing for us. However, it still has been a challenge, because the reason why I put them in school in the first place was to give me a break, because it was overwhelming. I have, like, last year, the year before, newborn baby and a toddler. Like, I've always had a newborn baby and a toddler, and they're all 2 years apart. And so, you know, the year before, you know, kindergarten, preschool, it was okay. I had a newborn, and it was okay. And, you know, you're really flexible, because, you know, there was really nothing to teaching kindergarten, preschool. All they had to, you know, read, write letters, that's fine. When my fourth one came along, and then, you know, my 9-year-old going into 3rd grade, and the other one 1st grade, it started to be very challenging, because, you know, they have more work, you know, more things to do. And then I have a little baby who wanted me to hold him all the time. I had to feed him. And then I had this toddler running around. And so it really just took a load on me. Like, it took a toll on me. I was stressed and trying to make sure that I get all their assignments done, and at the same time trying to make sure the 2-year-old weren't into everything, and the baby crying, and so that's the reason why I sent them to school. I really wanted to homeschool them as long as I could, but I put them in school for me, so I won't lose my mind. You know, like when they said, there have been plenty of nights that I've cried in my closet. You know, plenty of nights. I've just cried, and you know, and so it was challenging at first, just to get them to refocus. You're at home, you got to get this done, and at the same time trying to keep the little ones focused. You know, it was adjustment for them, because they were used to being home with just me. You know, they had all the attention, and so now their brothers are home, and I'm giving them most of the attention. And the little ones are like, hey, you know, they're acting out, doing their, you know, just to get my attention. And my almost 2-year-old, he just reverted back into this baby mode, because before then, him and my 4-year-old, they would be upstairs on the loft. I would not see them. I would just make sure they get their snack, their lunch, make sure they were changed or whatever, and they would just have fun by themselves. And so my 2 older ones came home, and I was giving all the attention to them, and they started acting out. So it was really tough.
My youngest daughter isn't in school yet. She'll be in kindergarten, hopefully in the actual school. Zuri was in 2nd grade, so the school was really good about saying, okay, this is what we're doing week by week. Their teacher even dropped it off at our house. This is what we're doing week by week. Any questions you have? But Zuri was a pretty independent kid, and I was like, okay, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. I'm here to answer anything. But I let her take the reins on it, and assignments turned in. Everything became kind of clockwork for us because it was the same studying she had to do each week. And I think because she's in 2nd grade, we had a little easier than a higher grade. But I did notice the dynamic between Zuri coming back home every day, all day, and Amara not having her place as the only child during the day. And at first it was awesome, and now I'm noticing squabbles. But I'm not the only one that has noticed that. A lot of parents have said the same things. So I don't feel as bad. I'm like, whoa, why do my kids hate each other? They don't. It's a lot of kids now that are used to, or not used to sharing as much space as they've had to. And it's back and forth, back and forth. So
and that's what I'm experiencing. My 4-year-old constantly fighting with my 6-year-old. Like, I'm breaking up fights all day long.
I'm like, well,
I
loved each other.
here's I'm listening to you all, and now that school is out, how is this going to be different than any other summer? Because your kids are home in the summer. So how do you think it's going to be different?
Well, they're at home now. Like, they're limited to where they can go. We can't do a lot of activities. We can't go to the park. Can't go to the pool. I mean, we lived at the pool last year. Constantly, well, they did anyway. I didn't go as much, but they stayed at the pool. Going to, summer camps, my oldest one did. So that's the change. That's, that's what's different now than just, a regular summer. Can't go on our family trip now, just stuff like that. So
all of that,
and they can't really interact with the neighborhood kids either.
Right, exactly.
I had to kind of make a structure for them so that I could manage work and manage what they had to do. But my plan for this summer is to still, let them be kids, do a lot in the backyard, the front yard, a lot of walks through the neighborhood, with them riding in their wagon or just walking with me. But my plan is to kind of incorporate some educational things, because mine are supposed to start VPK, voluntary pre-K, for 4-year-olds in August. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore, but my goal is to kind of do some more home education things that I couldn't do during this time, either during the time their daycare was trying to come together with the program, and then also when it ended, when they reopened. So I'm hoping to kind of do some pre-K readiness things with them, and some more outdoor learning, nature walks. Just to keep them busy. We don't have a pool, but just their little kiddie pool that we have, slip and slide. Just keep them busy, because like Quan, and even like you, Shana, I understand the whole, like, you're in 4 walls, but you have other 4 walls. I have 3 walls. They just want you to do everything with them.
And Shana, you're not working because of the shutdown. So because your place of employment is shut down. Yeah. And you were actually interviewed with Reuters.
Yeah, I was.
So
Reuters,
tell us about that.
I freelance blog. I don't say freelance right because I don't think I'm that good at it, but I do write blogs. And a lady that I collaborated with, a colleague that I collaborated with a couple times in the last couple of years, suggested to her writer friend at Reuters that she interviewed me for this piece. So I emailed her and told her who I was, and she's an economics writer. She wrote about the economics of single mothers within COVID. So I understand that it wasn't going to be my life story, but she asked me some, pretty hard questions about um, how are we coping? What am I doing for money? What are we doing for food? How are we getting by? So it was awesome to be interviewed by a publication so large. As soon as it was released, the New York Times published it again. They shared it again, and like all these different. So that part was pretty cool. I don't know that I made a huge impact on her story because I think my story was a lot of like everyone's story that's in my same demographic. But yeah, I'm not working now. No bartending. I think we're supposed to open up at the beginning of June.
So are you able to collect unemployment?
Yeah, but I am, and I've been hearing a lot going around of people saying, "Oh, you're fine. You should be happy. You're collecting unemployment. It's probably more than you make." Well, it's not. I took a huge pay cut. I'm thankful that they added the $300. Otherwise, we would not be the $600. Otherwise, we would not be able to survive this financially. I do believe spiritually we would have been okay. But bartending would have afforded me a lot more. I'm not complaining though because I don't believe that we should be open. We have to go back because I have to save my place in line. I can't not go back now and then someone take the shifts that would have been mine.
How do you social distance in a bar? That's impossible because most bars that I've been in are really small spaces to begin with. And so you've got all these people crowded in and you can't really drink with a mask on. And I don't know how the logistics of that's going to work. And are you concerned about that, Shannon?
Oh, sure. I'm concerned about life hereafter. Like I'm concerned about everything in our lives from here on out. Nothing will be the same. I was thankful that I had the forethought or the introspection to kind of reinvent myself during this COVID. I went to real estate school. I'm almost done with getting my license. I started cooking. I started hosting cocktail parties, like anything I could do to make sure I'm not in this position again. When we go back to work, I've been told that our 14-person bar, and I guess we can hold like 35 people in our lounge, has to go down to 17 effectively. And I've been doing it a long time. I'm in my 20th year of bartending, so my following is large. Not bragging, that's just how it is. Like a lot of people know me and say, "Oh, when you working again?" So I think we're probably gonna have to work out time limits. People can stay only a certain amount of time, and then y'all got to get up because there's another group of people that want to come, and I will always be masked. It is probably against my religion as far as like my philosophy on taking care of guests to like not be able to talk to them, not be able to smile, not be able to show who I am, and a lot of who I am is in my smile. That's going to be hard for me, but I have children at home, and I have a 65-year-old mother that I have to make sure I protect too. So there are a lot of things that I'm going to take really personal when it comes to joining the workforce again. But in the end, there's got to be income coming from somewhere. Personally, I don't think it's going to last long. I'm scared to say it. I hate to say it, but we're not doing any social distancing in Charleston like we should. And I would not be surprised if there was another lockdown.
I just think that no matter what happens, because our cases never did go down. They've been steadily rising ever since. There's been no drop. There's been no leveling off. They just keep going up, and he just keeps opening and going to phase 1, phase 2. And I think that they're not going to shut back down. No matter what happens, they are not going to shut back down. I just don't believe that once the barn doors open, that they're going to close it again. That's just my feeling. the older one being 6 hours away, and he has a chronic underlying health condition. And that one, I'm a little more nervous about him going back to school because he is so far away. And what if he gets sick? And so I feel like I want him to go back and finish his senior year in college and have that experience on, for him. But then on the other hand, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to worry. If he goes back, if they reopen, the moment he pulls away to go back to school, I am going to sit and worry all the time, just constantly. Is he okay? Is he being safe? It's that, at least with, I don't know, there's something about when you can't see your kids and they're that far away,
Moms, are y'all scared about, or do you exhibit a level of fear about integrating your children back into school, or do you think by that time it'll be ready?
I don't know. I hope not. One of the things that I keep focusing on is how I'm presenting to my kids. Having older kids who have reached a point where developmentally they should be crashing into all kinds of independence. They should be in a place where they could go out and my older one especially, he wanted to get a job this summer and he was saving money for some pretty big purchases, and those kinds of steps toward independence that as parents you celebrate and you kind of cheer for. It's hitting them right at the point where they should be able to step out of the house and do far more on their own.
Right.
And now they're being told, actually, no, you have to stay back. I have deep concerns, again, psychology of, can I do this? Can I do that? That uncertainty, you want them to feel confident. You want them to feel excited. You want them to feel a little bit fearless. That's part of the benefit of being young.
We just don't know what's going to happen. And you've got the fear of the illness, and then there's the economic anxiety. And I think, okay, my older one is supposed to graduate next year. And what's the job market going to be like? Is he going to be able to, he's all, my whole life, getting this kid through high school, then getting him through college, and then he graduates and into what, 20% unemployment. So that's a concern of mine with him too. And I just, at this point, I'm just trying not to, just try and focus just one day at a time. Okay, we'll find out if they're going to have school in the fall. If they do, okay, we'll navigate that somehow. And if I start thinking about everything down the road, then it's overwhelming.
Dasia, before you came back on, we were just talking about just how the children has been coping with being at home, compared to just a regular summer, at home. How has this changed?
They don't like it.
And you being,
they are literally isolated here. Because outside of taking them maybe to mom's house, I don't take them anywhere else. So it's not even like a regular summer where we can say, oh, let's take a weekend and go to the beach, or even just have fun outside of the backyard and stuff. So it's like with their age differences, they fuss daily.
Yeah, we were mentioning that, how the children yeah
in my face all day. So it's
and how have you turned this kind of negative into a positive, like you personally, just as far as I know you're making masks now, like how have your creativity changed? And
yeah, you said it about the mask, but I don't know. I have to come back with that one because I don't know. Each day you have to try to make the best out of the situation. So, I mean, you got to think positive. I mean, it's family time, it's bonding time.
Yeah.
And also with my son, you know, his grades, well, he's actually doing better doing school online. I guess because it's not the pressure of the classroom and his classmates and, you know, friends and all of that. He can focus better. So that was a positive. When it came to my daughters and her being in first grade, it opened my eyes to the things that they were introducing to them so young.
Yeah.
And I feel like in first grade that you shouldn't be trying to introduce sixth grade level words and everything to them. And I'm like, is this what they're teaching y'all?
Right,
And
exactly.
why you're struggling, because the first grader does not know what an attribute is.
When you've been inside the house for 2 months to try and emerge without fear, I don't know. You know, how do you do that?
I mean, you know, I still kind of get paranoid just going to the grocery store. You know,
I do too.
I feel kind of dirty now. I don't know. You know, I know it's a lot has to do with mental. It's mentally, but
I think it's
just
because we're
the
already
atmosphere.
naturally OCD. Like, that's in
Yeah.
our nature. We raised like OCD.
Because I've been like this before the whole pandemic. Even when my children went to school, you know, they will come home. I tell them to wash up. You know, naturally, I'm very, you know, diligent at making sure that they keep their hygiene up and wash their hands and you know, all of that, sanitize our area. I've always been like that. So this pandemic hasn't really changed. But it has kind of mentally, you know, changed me. Just a little more paranoid than usual. And I wouldn't be as paranoid because I know that we've always been doing what we should have been doing, but it's a little different.
But that doesn't mean that everyone that comes to contact with you does do what they're supposed to do at the same time. So
yeah, and that's
you have to be protective on yourself and on their behalf as well.
And that's my fear, because I feel like a lot of the people that are in this town, and I don't necessarily mean the people who are living here, but the people who are here, they're not taking it seriously. If they were, then they wouldn't be here. So yeah, I get I think I'm probably, maybe not, maybe I would be nervous no matter where I lived, but I just feel like I wish I was anywhere else but here during the pandemic.
Well, I can tell you one place you don't want to be is Myrtle Beach.
Well, yeah, okay, now see, I live in Galveston, Texas, which is like, it would be comparable to how Myrtle Beach is in South Carolina. You know, like that's where everybody goes. So it's like it attracts. Yeah, that's where I live. Only in Texas.
Okay. 5 months of this does a lot to the psyche of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. It really does, because it's done a lot to me, and I should be able to handle more than they have. So I really feel for kids in this day and age, because they're getting a little bit of the short end of the stick. Like, they don't really know the parameters of what we're experiencing when they're small, but they know their parents are like, no, you can't go here. No, my kids ask every day when they can go to the park. I don't know what to tell them. So we can go outside, but it's not the same. And we take walks, it's just not the same. So I'm hoping by August we'll be okay. If not, I'll just move it to next year. And who knows if we're going to be okay next year.
Shortly after 9/11, when they began putting so many rules and restrictions on airline travel and how you could engage and act in an airport, what a lot of people came to realize is that you were probably actually safer on an airplane and in an airport 6 months after 9/11 than you ever were prior to.
Exactly.
Now I'm wondering, with this pandemic and all of this attention to sanitizing and to not spreading infection, in some ways, is it going to be a cleaner environment after all of this than it ever was 6 months ago?
This is when I think, it's just my opinion, that a lot of these things are politically charged, economically charged. The sanctions, I mean, not sanctions, but these guidelines were lifted magically right around Cinco de Mayo, right before Memorial Day. Did you really feel like you should go out, or did they really want the money that you're spending?
Yeah.
You know?
So I think
car dealerships and grocery stores are okay to go in. They haven't given them numbers on who can be in there, but other things are cut off. Like, where do you draw the line? Either we're all in or we're all out. Like, and this is why I think it's a financial and a political motivation behind it.
I really think that for some of these states that in cities and areas, you know, I think it's financial, because no, there is nothing different today than there was a month ago. Like I said, our cases haven't gone down.
Right.
There's nothing magical except for it's Memorial Weekend. And I think that they just made the decision, hey, we can't afford to stay closed. We have to open. I really think it comes down to that.
And that's where it comes down to your personal decision, you know. And I have so many family members and friends that are on so many different sides of the fence with this, like, you know, oh, absolutely not.
Right.
We're going to be safe. And then I have other friends who are like, oh, it's fine. Some people say it's made up, it's manufactured, it's not really happening. But for us, we had two very real, two close to home, you know, situations. One, my husband had a family member, a distant family member, but a family member passed away from COVID just 2 Fridays ago. And it was like, what? And it actually hit several members of their family, but the older family member passed. So that was way too real for us, even though it was a distant family member. And then in another situation, when he was still working in the office, he was possibly exposed to COVID by one of his employees. And then 2 days later, our daughter, our very high risk daughter with severe asthma, suddenly developed a high fever and was sick. And the fever persisted, and then she was vomiting. And then I got a fever. And so it became very real, like, okay, this is our one who is very sick. We've had major emergencies for. So she and I had to go to the hospital, you know, start at the tent outside, you know, go inside, waiting room is closed, go to the, you know, shuttle. Everyone's treating us like we have the plague, you know. She was tested and then have to sit through that wait of, you know, does she have COVID or not? Our whole family had to be quarantined because we had all been exposed to her. Thankfully, the employee was negative. Thankfully, our daughter was negative, but it was, and even at that time, we had been quarantined for about 2 weeks at that point. Right. So it was like, okay, did my husband bring it in? Did I bring it in when I went to the grocery store? Did I not wipe those things down? Did I not, you know, this, all the things that run through your mind when you're waiting for that test to come back, it's like, okay, and every time someone coughs or they sniff, or every time you, like, I had a fever, like I said, that one night, but it went away. Everything that runs through your mind, it's like, okay, this is why we're home. This is why I wear my mask when I go to the store. This is why we wipe everything down when we get it home. This is why we're not going to the parks. This is why we're not going to the beach, which, I mean, the beach is, you know, it's all up to interpretation, but it really just comes down to what is it that you're willing to do? So come August, I don't know what's going to happen with the schools, like we've all said. If it's still very much a threat, I may have to become a homeschooling mother and or elect to do virtual, even though I hated it. If it means keeping my children safe, I just might have to do it. Again, how we adjust and adapt according to what it is our family needs. Because when it hits your home in whatever way, it just puts everything back into perspective. Like, you know what? It is just that easy.
Yeah.
Something like that to get into our home and for us all to get sick.
I've had a friend that died. Actually, in the last 3 weeks, it's been hard. They weren't all COVID related, but I have lost 3 people and a dog in just the last few weeks, and so I just feel like it's like the wall. I feel like the walls are closing in. You know, I just feel like this sounds so dramatic, but I just feel like I'm just surrounded by death. So I am very aware that it's real. And it could just be my age, that I know older people, more older people who, you know, tend to be high risk.
My kids' grandmother, their father's mom, passed away from COVID on Easter Sunday. She was the most religious person I know, so that was scary. My mother's uncle has COVID now. I don't do well with death either. I'm very afraid of dying, and I'm even more afraid of dying because of this.
One of the great struggles is taking it seriously and recognizing that there is something legitimate out there, and wanting my kids to be cautious, but there's a mental health component. And where do you start to open gates and say, well, you can do this now, and you can do that? Because there is an element of needing to experience some form of human interaction in life. And we have plenty of people in our area, even though we have all of these rules, there are plenty of people who absolutely do not care. And my kids see that. And they recognize that, yes, we're supposed to socially distance, we're supposed to wear masks, but 100 yards down the street, there's a pack of people sitting shoulder to shoulder, staring at their phones together. Why can't I do that? And then I'm stuck in this horrible position of trying to explain to my kids why it's important to follow the rules, while also recognizing they need to get out too. And I haven't yet found that balance.
So how do you all feel about this vaccination that they're trying to put out?
Nah. No.
It seems fast. I would be much more comfortable accepting treatment than I would a vaccine.
Right.
This seems awfully fast for a vaccine.
Yeah, I think it takes like 3 or 4 years for them to do all the trials and stuff, right? Isn't that normal?
Mm-hmm. And I used to be in the medical field, so it kind of turned me away from all of that.
The reason I brought it up was just because, I feel like what's going to really do it for some people is for there to be this shot, this, flu shot, COVID shot, and then people are going to feel comfortable. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I don't think enough people talk about it. My husband and I talk about it, but I just don't feel like enough people talk about it. And so I always think, well, what is it going to take for people to be more comfortable? And unfortunately, sometimes I think people are going to be more comfortable with the vaccination. I know that's not how we feel. I'm just saying that's how, others feel.
A lot of people think that vaccinations are a quick fix.
Like,
I don't think they're going to be able to put one out for at least another year at the earliest. I mean, they have to do all kinds of clinical trials and stuff.
I'm more afraid they're going to speed up that process, though.
Yeah.
When the very first polio vaccine, when they were offering it to children, and it took several years, more than several, but bear with me, several years to go ahead and develop that. That first round, they found that in some children, they were getting polio paralysis in the arm where the vaccine was. They had to pull it and then try again. I'm not anti-vax. My kids are vaccinated. I get why they're out there. Regarding a vaccine for COVID right now, I'm more concerned that they're going to speed up the process in the name of opening up the economy. And so there's going to be this competition among whatever companies are putting this together, because that's a cash cow. Whoever it is that comes up with a vaccine, they're going to make billions of dollars. So I'm a little more worried about that. I'm not in the medical field. I couldn't even pretend that I have any expertise here, but psychologically, I'm more comfortable working toward a treatment than I am a vaccine.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm scared of a vaccine. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm not saying I'm a conspiracist, but sorta, I guess. Like, I feel like in olden days, they might have been actually there to cure you or to make sure you weren't getting anything. I feel like now,
with
who
all
knows
the things
what's
that they
in the
put
vaccine.
in it.
So I don't know. I'm not anti-vax, but stuff like that, I don't know. I'd have to wait for a little while to see what happened with everyone else.
Yeah.
Dasia, what were you saying?
Yeah, I'm like that too. I think they just, I don't know. I mean, my kids are vaccinated. They get the required vaccinations in order to be in school. But anything that's elective, I decline.
Me too.
That's just me, though.
Me personally, for my family, I just make sure that we build our immune system as much as possible. Watch, with the foods that we eat, the vitamins, the herbs that we take. And so I really support, like Sherry said, maybe coming up with a treatment. And I wish it was really taught more about just strengthening your immune system. Yeah, really, continue to wash your hands, social distance, sanitize. Make sure you're home, you're breathing in, pure air at home or whatever, and just really strengthening your immune system with food, vitamins, herbs, stuff like that.
One of the things I think that COVID has reminded us, which we've been really very, very blessed or lucky, however you look at it, to not have to really think about, is just how vulnerable the human body is. Living in 2020, so many years after so many vaccines have virtually eradicated childhood illnesses. We don't have massive outbreaks of measles. We don't have massive outbreaks of diphtheria. And we have these medical advancements that do help us treat some very debilitating illnesses, things like diabetes. That was at one time a crushing illness to have. We have so many treatments for that now. We have so many treatments for hypertension and all these other things that used to really we've, I think, believed ourselves a bit more superhuman than we really are. And COVID kind of reminds us, actually, we're pretty vulnerable. And we do have to take care of ourselves. And sometimes there are diseases out there and viruses out there that are pretty tough for us to handle. But I don't know anybody really alive right now that has had to experience that ever in their lives.
So wait, Dasia and Q are sisters?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, how many more is it?
Three more. There's 5 girls.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Okay, so Dasia, are you older or younger?
I'm 7 years younger.
Yeah.
Are you the baby?
Oh my!
No, the baby, she's 6 years younger than me. She's hiding. She's not a mom, so she's,
I didn't realize I knew that there was 5 of you.
Yeah, we're all,
but I didn't realize you were that many years apart.
Our 2 older sisters are 2 years apart. The rest of us are 7 and 6 years apart.
Wow.
So growing up, we used to fight a lot. The younger one got on the older one's nerves and stuff like that. But
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 7, but there's 4 boys, 3 girls. My mama has 7 kids in 16 years. So roughly, 2 years to 2.5 years apart. Yeah. But that's why I stuck to 2. Q, when I first met Ryan online, we'd be in all these groups, and we're both Geminis, and I think our first kids are both Aquarians, right?
Our oldest, yeah.
Right, and so is mine. So we were like, oh yeah, we're twins, and now our kids are coming, and then y'all had 2 more. I was like, I can't keep up now. Not having no more.
Yeah, trying to get that girl, and then
this is the baby sister.
She is.
Oh, okay, hi.
They look like twins, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
I'm 6 years older.
Yeah. There were some fights growing up, but we're best friends now. We're all very close.
All right, ladies. I think we're about done.
Yeah.
So good to meet y'all.
It was nice meeting all of you.
You too.
All right.
Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.